Ready? Okay, are you going to tell me when you're ready? Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the very first Candid Critters in the Classroom webinar. I am your host, and I am the program coordinator for Candid Critters in the Classroom, Dr. Stephanie Shuttler, and I am a scientist on Candid Critters also. In these webinars, we are going to be going over the CEU requirements for you to be able to earn credits. We are going to go over the lesson plans that you'll be teaching in the classroom, and then these webinars are live so that you can ask questions. So anytime you have a question, you can type it in the comments box, and then at the end, I will be going over the question and answering them on air. Also, we ask you to stick through it to the end because we'll be asking you some questions to be able to get your CEU credit. Before we begin on Candid Critters in the Classroom, I want to share with you some of my favorite camera trapping photos by kids. I have been working with kids in camera trapping for the last 4 years around North Carolina and the world, and I have some great photos to share with you. First, this one comes from Haywood County in North Carolina, and it's just a really gorgeous picture of a red fox, one of the best red fox pictures that we have in all of our eMammal camera trapping data. Our next picture is a young coyote from Alamance County. This comes from Broadview Middle School. And this picture was actually submitted to a Trail Cam Pro contest, which is an international contest, and it won for the best North American photo. And the kids were so excited, they received a free camera trap from it. Here is another coyote. I love coyotes, but I actually included this picture because it won the final fur last year. That was our March Madness series. And this coyote people liked so much because it's black. So when you look at these pictures of critters, even if you get a common animal, you might get some variation on them, like this coloration in this coyote. And this picture is actually extra cool because it was in a cemetery. So these coyotes were walking around the cemetery at night. You can see the other coyote eyes in the background. And that picture was also from Alamance. Here is a picture that I was really surprised by, and these are two common animals. We have a deer and a raccoon. This comes from Nightville High School in Wake County. And the raccoon you can see in the back, it has its eyes flashing like a firefly, and all of a sudden it pounces towards the deer and scares this male deer away. And we really don't know why this raccoon decided to do this. So the point I want to show you is that even if you're catching common animals, you never know what they're up to. And it's so much fun to see what these animals are doing when they don't think they're being watched. And then finally, my personal favorite school camera trap photo is of this black bear. I can't even believe we got a black bear near a school. And this comes from Buncombe County, from Valley Springs Middle School, and this was captured just on the trail right behind the school. So very cool that kids are contributing to science and conservation around the world. And to really emphasize that point, this is not just North Carolina that's participating, but we have students from Mexico and India and Kenya, and through the power of kids collecting camera trap pictures, we have captured 83 native species of mammals. So these are wild animals, and 12 of these species are actually on the IUCN Red List, and this is a list for threatened and endangered species. Some of these species are even critically endangered, like the black rhino. So kids can collect high quality data that is used by scientists. So these are really important contributions that go to our photo repository in the Smithsonian forever. Finally, just to emphasize the importance of North Carolina data and how cool it has been, I've been setting up camera traps with kids on school habitats, and I compared the detection rates, which is the number of times you see an animal a day on average, to a state park here in Raleigh. As most of our schools are suburban, I wanted to compare it to a more suburban protected area. And you'll see the schools are in green and Umstead is in orange. And for the schools, they all have higher detection rates for animals except for deer. And this is especially true for animals like coyotes and foxes. So even in these suburban schools that don't necessarily look like they're good habitats for wildlife, we're getting really amazing animal photos. Just to bring you back to Candid Critters in North Carolina and our goals of the project, what we are trying to do here is the biggest camera trapping project in the world. If we can complete this, that's what it will be. That's how big this project is. So we are looking for camera traps all over all 100 counties of North Carolina. And if you go to our website, we have an interactive map, and you can see on it that we still have some counties in gray. So what that means is that nobody has deployed any cameras there. So we don't know what animals are living there. So we really need your help in trying to recruit people to be able to sample those areas. And if you click on the map too, this tells you the detection rates. So here I've clicked on this county because it's really dark green. So that suggests it has a high detection rate of deer. But if you click on it, there's only 2 camera traps run in that county. So don't be fooled. Just because a county is colored in doesn't necessarily mean that it's finished by any means. There's still a lot of camera trapping work to be done. So again, we really encourage you to spread the word about Candid Critters. This webinar is specifically designed for teachers, but anyone can participate in Candid Critters. So when you're implementing it in the classroom with your kids, especially in those counties that have really low samplings, please tell them that they can participate with their families as well and set up camera traps in their yards. To get a CEU, I'm going to talk about the requirements you have to fulfill as part of the Candid Critters project. And please note that there are slightly different requirements for grades 5 through 8. But again, this does not mean that other teachers cannot participate, just that there's a slightly different version of requirements. So what do you have to do to get a CEU? First, go to the Candid Critters in the Classroom site on the Candid Critters website, and there will be a link to sign up. And this is so I can maintain a list of teachers who want CEUs, so I'm not constantly emailing the other teachers with updates about the project. So make sure you're signed up there. You have to complete online training, and a lot of you have already done this, so yay, you're on your way to receiving 1 CEU already. There will be 3 30-minute webinars to ask questions and to help guide you through the lesson plans. This is the first one, and then we have 2 more in February. For grades 5 through 8, we are asking teachers to administer a pre-survey before they start any Candid Critters in the classroom lesson plans, and a post-survey when they complete. For other teachers, we are asking the students to write a reflection of their Candid Critters experience. And then finally, we'll ask you to submit a short survey on your experiences implementing Candid Critters in the classroom. And we need all of these materials by June 18th to receive your credit. To go over the timing of implementation, we are doing this webinar series so that teachers can deploy their camera trap for the February 16th through 19th camera trap session. So this will give teachers in grades 5 through 8 plenty of time to be able to administer the survey. So what is the survey I've been talking about? Well, this is actually really important scientific research as well. Rarely have citizen science projects been evaluated, and there's only one project that I know of that has been studied, that has evaluated kids. So this is very new, cutting edge research, and we are trying to see if Candid Critters improves scientific literacy and connections with nature and animals. Our goal of this project is to align Candid Critters with the state standards that you already have to teach. So we want to be able to show that kids can improve their educational outcomes by participating in Candid Critters. So it's really, really important that you do the pre-test before saying anything about Candid Critters. So even though lesson plans 1 and 2 take place before camera trap deployment, we still don't want you to talk about Candid critters or do any of the lesson plans until the students take the survey. If you are in other grades, however, you don't have to worry about that survey and you can get started whenever you want. If you're in grades 5 and 8 through 8 and you still want to get started, you can, but again, we just ask that you don't include your class. So you can do it as a private Candid Critters citizen and not involve your class in the data collection or the lesson plans. For the surveys, I will be uploading the consent forms on the website. So this will be information sheets for the kids' parents, and it will give them the option to sign out of the survey if they don't want their kids taking it. But it's really just questions about animals and their connections to nature, and some questions about science as well. Tonight we'll cover lesson plans 1 and 2, which will be administered before the camera trap deployment. Okay, so great. Now we're going to move on to the lesson plans. The first lesson plan is all about mammals. So it's really a discussion-based lesson plan trying to understand what your students know about mammals. What are mammals and what mammals live in North Carolina? How many have they seen? So we're trying to get at what the kids know and don't know about wildlife here. We're also introducing them to the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, which is responsible for conserving and managing wildlife here in North Carolina. And introduce your students to the Candid Critters project through looking at the best of photos. And this is a really fun thing to do, and it will get your kids excited about participating and also understanding more about the wildlife here in North Carolina. And to get your CU credits, we're also asking that you take a photo of your kids participating in this activity, and you can submit it to me by email, and I will check it off as you having completed this portion of the lesson plan. To accompany some lesson plans, we have an appendix. So for lesson plan 1, we have an appendix that goes more into depth about mammal knowledge. So if you want deeper questions about how you study mammals and what mammals are, we have provided that. I also have a Daily Planet talk that I have given. That's a public museum talk that we give here. And I recorded it specifically for the classroom. So if you want more knowledge about camera trap surveys and mammals, you can listen to this for your own knowledge, or you can share parts of it with your classroom as well. And we also have some key terms that are linked to the North Carolina standards in this appendix at all. So some good vocabulary words to use. We have a homework option or an additional classroom activity for students. They can choose a mammal and research it in depth. And we really recommend that you give this option to your students because it ties to the standards once again, introducing abiotic and biotic factors and how they influence mammal populations. And it will also set the stage for future lesson plans, especially the food web and food chain lesson plan, as students are able to delve into what types of food these mammals eat. In lesson plan 2, we're going to be taking the kids outside, but before we do that, we want them to start thinking more about the scientific process. Your students are participating in real science, so we want them to think like scientists do. So they're going to watch a video on how to ask good scientific questions, and especially with camera trap data. Then you're going to have your students go outside and they're going to investigate their habitat and see how their schoolyard is suitable for wildlife or isn't suitable for wildlife. So they're going to use their observational skills and look for evidence of animal homes and animal food sources. And your school does not have to be a really wilderness area. If you look at this camera trap picture up here from Fuquay Arena, you can see just right by the school building, their camera trap caught a raccoon. So you can do this in the sports fields around the school. You don't have to go deep in the woods to do these types of habitat audits. For schoolyard sleuths, I also highly recommend using an app. This is the iNaturalist app, and I have it on my phone here. I am a big fan. And in the appendix, we also included instructions on how to use this. You can follow me, and here's one of my observations from the eastern part of Candid Critters. This is when I went out for the Fall Fawn Frenzy, and I was setting up a camera trap, and I came across this snake, and it slithered away super fast. I just got this really quick picture of it, and I am not a snake expert, so I uploaded it to iNaturalist, and this is a citizen science database. So again, this is more real science, and experts and members of the community will help you identify this animal. So it turns out that this was a pygmy rattlesnake. I'd never seen one before in my life. And I was so excited, I tweeted about it, and it caught the attention of someone from the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. And they actually wanted to use my observation. So this, I just thought it was a, regular snake, maybe a garter snake. It turned out to be a really cool observation. So it's a super easy app to use, and you can use it for plants, animals, fungi, anything living. I use it all the time, and I love it. Again, it's optional, but a really great resource. With the knowledge that kids have now discovered by investigating their schoolyard, they are going to bring that inside, and you can project your school using Google Maps and plan where you want to deploy your camera trap on school grounds. This is a school from Wake County, and it's a more rural school. It's an ex-urban area, but you can see here all of the dots represent their camera trap locations. They have some right next to their track and their football field, and they're not going deep into the forest. These are just little patches of woods right around the school. So again, you don't need this super wilderness school to be able to deploy your camera traps. For the schoolyard sleuths, after they decide where you want to put your camera trap and they've investigated their schoolyard, they make predictions about what animals are in their schoolyard. So here's an example from a 4th grade classroom. This teacher used a dot plot method. So he gave the kids stickers, and they could volunteer answers for what animals they thought would be found at their school, and then the kids would use their stickers to vote to see which animals they thought would be most likely. So you can see some kids were really on the spot with saying that deer and squirrels were going to be the top animals on their camera traps, because deer and squirrel are the top animals on Candid Critters camera traps. So this is a really great way to match up the predictions to what you actually catch on your Candid Critters camera trap. And then we have another really fun homework activity that we encourage you to do, but again, it's optional. And this is something new we've designed, we're really excited about. But as a scientist, we work frequently with engineers to try to make cutting edge science. So where can the next camera trap go? Can we get a camera trap that is smaller, that lasts longer? Can we make 3D camera traps or camera traps that have 360 views? These are the types of cutting edge technologies that we're trying to do. So we have a homework assignment for kids to come up with their own camera trap. And this can be used when you actually deploy the camera traps, as sometimes it's hard with really large classrooms to work around a single camera trap. You can have kids set up their camera trap that they make on school grounds, or you can have it set them up in their backyards and see how their camera trap holds up. Or even inside their school. Camera traps are designed so that animals don't see them, so we can get in an unbiased view of how wildlife acts. So you can set up these fake camera traps in school and see if the students notice them, and how good are the students actually at camouflaging their camera traps. So we think this will be a really fun activity for them to pursue, and we hope you use it. And if you do, I'd love to get pictures of the kids' camera traps. We're really excited about this option. And that about covers it for the first 2 lesson plans. Again, these are done before the camera trap deployment, but I wanted to get you thinking about downloading the Mammals software. A lot of the schools I worked with, the teachers are not allowed to download software directly onto the computers. So you might need to contact an IT professional, and sometimes this can take weeks. So I would get that process started now, and make sure that you can download it correctly on your laptop, so when you're ready to deploy the camera trap in a few weeks, it's all ready to go when you're ready to upload the memory cards. One more thing to add, I'm very happy to do classroom visits, either in person if they're close enough, or through Skype or Google Hangouts. So just email me if you want to have a visit from a scientist. It's one of my favorite things to do, so I'm really more than happy to do that. And then now we are going to open it up to your questions. So again, you can write questions on the Facebook page or on the YouTube link, and I will answer them. But first, we have a couple of questions that teachers have already submitted to me that I'm going to go over. I had a couple of questions about the camera trap schedule. If you look at the Candid Critters website, we have a deployment schedule, and some teachers asked if they have to stick to that. And we are asking yes, as best as they can. So if you have to let the camera run a little bit later, that's okay. But we want you to deploy the camera trap to those dates. So if you pick up your camera trap, say 2 weeks before the next deployment, we just ask you to wait for that deployment so we can all deploy them at the same time. So try to stick to that schedule as best as you can. And another teacher had asked about adapting the Candid Critters lesson plans. So this teacher taught very young students. She taught kindergarten students. And some of the lesson plan recommendations that we have are writing exercises, which would be difficult for kindergartners to do. So you can still earn a CEU credit, but we're asking you to use your best judgment in adapting the lesson plans to your classroom. So in the case for kindergarten, instead of having them write a paragraph or fill out a worksheet, you might have them draw pictures. And if you're ever in doubt about what to do, you can just email me and I can help you come up with an alternative activity. And if you are adapting these lesson plans for your classroom, we would also love if you could, when you're editing the lesson plans for your classroom, send us copies of the revisions that you've made to these lesson plans, because then we can share them with other teachers. We have teachers all across the state, and while our focus has been on middle schools because of a previous grant, we would love to expand this opportunity to all teachers and provide them the resources so they can get going right away. So if you are able to adopt those lesson plans, that would be fantastic, and we would love it. And I'm going to now check the Facebook page and see if we have any other questions. It looks like I have an assistant, so we do have a few questions. Okay. The first question is, again, about the deployment dates. Are they flexible? So they're not really flexible, but we're asking that you match them as best as you can. So this might mean you have to set up your camera trap a little bit early. It's better to have more data in a single camera trap than to run it shorter. So if you have to set up your camera trap, again, a little bit early to be able to meet those dates, we're asking you to do that. We understand that life gets in the way sometime. And if you really have a difficult schedule or a hard time meeting it for some reason, just email me and I'll see if I can work something out with you. And when will the survey be available? I will upload it tomorrow. So the survey is available essentially right now. We have finished planning it all, and I will include all the documentation for the survey on the website tomorrow. Again, it requires consent forms, so you'll have to send these home with your teacher or with your students, and depending on the school, you may have to require permission by the parent. But most schools require just an information sheet, and that gives parents the option to have their students opt out if they don't want to take the survey. Somebody asked, do you use the BioBlitz portion of iNaturalist? So for those of you not familiar with BioBlitz, what this is a term to describe a challenge where you try to sample as much biodiversity as possible and in a time frame. So usually it's 24 hours. So I'm not sure which BioBlitz this question comes from Sam is talking about, because with iNaturalist, there's also different groups. So as a citizen, you can set up your group, and then there's also other groups that people set up. So for example, If you're a herpetologist, you might want to set up a group for reptiles and amphibians only. So you could set up a group for BioBlitz. So there might be groups already doing this, and you can link in with them. I know one of the teachers that we work with, or two of the teachers that we work with, are doing their own BioBlitz, and this will be on April 30th. They're doing a BioBlitz at their school, and I'm going to try to help out with this as well. So I can provide you with some more information about this BioBlitz centered around schools as the date becomes closer. And I believe this is the first BioBlitz to be done at school. So if your students can participate in this, that would be awesome. And then somebody asked about the limit of the program, if it's just in North Carolina or if it expands across the world. And so this project here is restricted to North Carolina, the Candid Critters Project. This is the name for our state project, but another teacher had asked me if there were teachers who could participate in other states, particularly California. And the answer is yes, but they do have to purchase their own camera trap. Unfortunately, we do not have the funds to provide camera traps to teachers participating in other states or even in other countries. And there is a sign-up form on the eMammal website for this, but it's best to email me and I can send you the information about signing up for other states. But essentially, eMammal is open up to participants all over the world. So we would love to have teachers across different states participate. And we have had teachers participate in other states. Notably Florida, and our partners are the Smithsonian. So we also have quite a few teachers participating in Virginia as well. So with that, I'm going to check in to see if we have any more questions. I don't think we do. Are we all set?
We've got one more.
One more?
A question from Michelle on
Okay.
Facebook. She has mentioned the Candid Critters project. Students cannot participate in the survey portion.
I think it will be okay, just as long. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Sorry, I'm going to repeat the question. So this question was about a teacher who already talked about Candid Critters to her students to the 5th and 8th grade classroom. So this would be a teacher who would do the surveys. And I would say go ahead and administer the survey. Just don't talk about Candid Critters further in depth. It's more about implementing the lesson plans than it is about saying we're going to set up a camera trap. So it's not that big of a deal, but just try to limit your discussion from now on, or get the surveys going as soon as possible. That would be fantastic. But yes, we understand teachers come back from the conferences and they're really excited, and they may even look at photos. But again, if you can prevent that, that'd be great, and take the survey first. Is there another question? Okay, this is another good question. So this question is about the flexibility of the dates, but this teacher is asking not necessarily about sticking to the deployment schedule, but if the teachers are allowed to set their camera traps later than the February date. And the answer to that is yes. You can earn your CEU up until June 18th. So you can essentially implement this even towards the end of school, as long as it's all completed before June 18th. We understand that this unit may align with the college unit, which some teachers teach later in the spring. So again, that is totally fine. And the CEU credit, you get it with only one deployment. So you can also start early and keep running Candid Critters. You don't have to do it just one time. And we actually recommend teachers do it multiple times. So we'll cover this in future lesson plans, but you can move the camera trap around the school as long as the distance is greater than 200 meters, or you can send the camera trap home with students to run in their backyards, or you can set it up in nearby parks around the schoolyard. There's lots of options. And if you run a camera trap for a year, you get one of our awesome Candid Critters shirts like I am wearing right now. And also, I forgot to mention this during the recruitment part, if you can recruit 3 people who complete Candid Critters, you will also receive a free t-shirt. And lots of teachers and other people have asked me about buying these t-shirts. You cannot buy them. You can only earn them through the Candid Critters program. Are there any other questions? Okay.
She set up the camera trap today.
Okay, the question that was asked was about somebody who had set up the camera trap ahead of time and didn't tell the students, so it's not biasing the survey, but she wants to hold on to the data and upload the data together with the students. That is fine. If you want to get your camera traps up and running now, that's perfectly fine, and just save the data, make sure you save all the deployment information, and keep copies of the photos, and you can work with your students when you're ready to upload with them at a later date. That's perfectly fine. And do we have any more questions? Or is that the last one?
That's all I see.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you have any other questions, you can post it in the Candid Critters teacher chat. And this is also meant for you to share best tips with each other. We have some veteran teachers in there that have been doing it for 3 years. So they're really experts at doing this in the classroom. And you can always email me. Thank you so much for participating.